He doesn't look nervous at all.
Yes, sir, there she goes.
Hello and welcome to episode 291 of Section 138. I'm your host, Mark Colley. As always, I'm joined by Jacob. No Bryson with us this week, but the Blue Jays take a split from the Philadelphia Phillies. They win on Tuesday in a narrow 2-1 victory, and then they lose in more of a blowout on Wednesday, 9-4 to the Phillies. But before we get to any of that, Jacob, how are you?
I mean, honestly, like I'll just get right into it. I'm not happy that they split this series. Like I get it, it's two games. Like you could either sweep or split or get swept. But yeah, I mean it's two, very similar teams in terms of like positioning and all that type of stuff going at it. And I mean the results necessarily weren't, I think, there, but there are a lot of good things that we'll get into throughout this episode that sort of behind the scenes, but also at the forefront of it that are I think are going to make the rest of the season very encouraging.
I'm a little bit more optimistic than you, I guess, about the outcome of all of this. It's a series split against a team that's pretty even keeled with the Blue Jays. You come into this series with very similar records, come into this series with very similar outcomes this season in terms of offensive expectations versus offensive reality. And you come out of this series with the series split. To me, that's kind of what you hope for, right? You win against teams that are worse than you lose to teams that are better than you split with teams that are the same talent as you, and you just hope that you are better than more teams than you are worse than. And so splitting a series against the Phillies, against a good Phillies team, even if their offense isn't totally there, to me, that's fine. I'll take it. I'll accept it, especially with some of the results we saw in this series, which we'll get to. I guess we can start with Yusei Kikuchi, because to me, he's kind of the story of this series, and he's been the story of really kind of the last like 3 months of the Blue Jays season in terms of the surprise that he's been in the Blue Jays rotation. He started Tuesday's game, that narrow 1-run win. He pitched 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 0 walks, 7 strikeouts. In that start, he tied the franchise record for the most consecutive starts with 1 earned run or fewer and 4 or more innings pitched. That's 6 in a row, ties him with Hyun-Jin Ryu for the franchise record, and he'll be going for the new franchise record to set the franchise record at 7 in a row in his next start, which will come not in this series against the Cincinnati Reds, but after that. I mean, there's not too much surprising here. Like, we've been seeing this from Yusei Kikuchi for months now, going back to basically the end of May. He's been absolutely phenomenal. ERA under 3 over that span. I guess the big surprise here is that it keeps continuing. Like, to me, that's the shocking part of this. Like, it was always a question of how sustainable is this? And the fact that he just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going is, I think, the biggest surprise of all of this.
Yeah, if you were to tell me that the Blue Jays' top three in the rotation was Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, and Yusei Kikuchi, I would have assumed you were crazy. Like, if you tell me this time last year, like you look at the turnaround from him, he had a career worst, I guess, season last season, and then you look at him, the lowest ERA that he's ever had, or off the top of my head, at least one of them, like a 3.44 ERA going into the end of August, and it's not even as if he's had like bad starts and he's making up for it. Like I mean, yeah, he's had bad starts, but it's just been consistently good. And I mean, you look at the last game where he, I guess, struggled there was two. There was July 1st and then July 6th, where he gave up 5 runs to the Red Sox and 4 to the White Sox. And then even other than that, like he May the 24th, he struggled against Tampa Bay where he was charged with 5 earned runs. But really, other than the odd 3 or 4 earned run game, other than that, he has been solid since the middle of May, or since the end of May, I should say. And, he's really working himself into like, one of the saviors of this team, because obviously Alek Manoah's down again. I kind of doubt we'll see him again this season. Like, I know there's a possibility, but at this point, like, what do you need? You need him to have 2 good starts in the minors now. Like, he had the one, and then he clearly isn't ready. And, maybe this just isn't his season, which is unfortunate for him. But, he's definitely working himself up to be, that even, dare I say, number 2 guy, or even, number 3 for sure. And, you're thinking of a playoff rotation, if you make the wild card, you make a division or further, this top three that the Blue Jays have, I'm very confident in it. Gosman, Manoah, or excuse me, Gosman, Kikuchi, and Barrios. And it looks like, when you see Kikuchi pitch, he looks like he knows what he's doing and he feels confident. And obviously, if you get rocked, you're not going to have that confidence. But you look at him, he doesn't look nervous at all. Like, yeah, I mean, he's not not going to smile like a ton when he pitches, but he's you can tell that there are not any nerves there. And you see when his pitches, like if they're breaking, they're starting in the strike zone, breaking out, or he's commanding the fastball. And it looks like he's just doing everything. He's painting the corners. He's got that velocity. Like he's got everything that he needs. Like he's taking that toolbox that he has and he's utilizing it to just the utmost effectiveness. And it's just, I mean, you want proof of that. He's getting, in his last start, obviously the 7 strikeouts, no walks, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk the first time. I guess the last time he did walk 3 against Arizona, but other than that, he really has not. I mean, he walked 5 against the Brewers, but other than that, like he is, every single game, it's, very little walks, very high strikeouts, very low earned runs and higher innings. Like you remember at the start of the season, we always talked about, yeah, he's probably a 5 inning at best guy. Once the top of the order goes around, he's out for the top of the order for that third time. He is out now. Like, I mean, I'm honestly surprised he was taken out when he was taken out in this last start, but he is now at that point where, if I'm John Schneider, I give him as long a leash as possible. And, you look at, you have 2 good lefties in your rotation. I know the Ryu thing, there's a lot of things that could be, that I think still need to get worked out there. He's obviously only been back for a couple starts, but you look at it, you got Bassett, Barrios, and Gosman, 3 righties, and then 2 dominant lefties, or at least 2 lefties that have the ability to be dominant. So it's a really good rotation. And even, we've seen the graphics on Sportsnet the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, really, where the Blue Jays, wrote pitching staff wise have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, ERA in baseball. And if we look at it, like this offense has not been what we expected to be. They're not hitting as many home runs. They're not really scoring as many runs in general as we thought, but they are still a very good, a very competitive team. And it is because of this pitching staff. And at the end of the day, I'll take, good pitching over good offense any day, because it's like, yes, you still need to score runs. Absolutely. I know, like that. Let's not act as if a 2-1 win is good. Like you want to score more runs, but I think that, in the playoffs, if you're going to win in the playoffs, you're going to get to the playoffs, you need to have this type of dominant pitching. I just, at this point, it's not even as if I can say like, oh, let's see how sustainable it is. How much longer can Kikuchi be this good for? This is who he is, at least for this season. So I think you just got to ride it until your season is over. And let's just hope that this continues into next season.
I'm going to hold you to what you just said there, in that you think good pitching is better than good offense.
Well, ideally you want both, but
of course.
But like, if I had to pick, like, would I rather the Blue Jays need to score 4 runs because Kikuchi gave up 3, or score 5 because he gave up 4? No, but I think I'll take I'll take good pitching over good offense, just because it is easier to not have to score as many runs. I mean, you want to score runs, but I think it's just easier when the staff is efficient and then they're giving the offense the ability to do what they need to do.
Okay, so no more complaining about the Blue Jays offense and lineup.
No, I'm still gonna complain. I'm still complaining. Like, it's atrocious, but
I will say, from a fan's perspective, you would much rather watch a team that has high offense than good pitching, because of course games are going to be more entertaining, or at least more offense heavy, more going on. But that's not to say, like, yeah, I think I probably agree with you. And this is something that Bryson and I talked about in the last episode, but the Blue Jays are kind of like built for the playoffs. I don't think enough people are talking about this, but when you think of the fact that, like, are you shaking your head because you don't agree with me, or not enough people are talking about this?
I don't know. Like, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, go ahead.
Because pitching wins championships. That's the saying, right? Defense wins championships, pitching wins championships. The Blue Jays have the best pitching staff in the league. Like, I'm not exaggerating. They're the only team in baseball with a pitching staff in the top 5 in starting pitching ERA and top 5 in bullpen ERA. They are the best pitching team in baseball. And that's going to set you up for success in the postseason, right? Good pitching shuts down good hitting 100% of the time. And so I know the regular season might be very painful right now. And obviously, we have our nitpicks with the Blue Jays offense a lot more than that most of the time. But when you look at it like that, when you frame it like that, I think we could be looking at a team that just needs to get into the playoffs. And once you're there, things get a little bit easier.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying. It's just part of me, I feel like the only thing that I would disagree on is, and I mean, you can give your opinion if you want, but I feel like when I'm watching this team, it feels as if the offense is trying to do too much. Like the amount of games over, I guess, the last, I mean, really the whole season, but especially the last couple, weeks and months, I have just, I'll watch an at bat and I'll just like slam my hand on the couch, be like, why are you swinging first pitch? Why are you swinging at a first pitch breaking ball with runners wherever, very low amount of outs, and then you fly out? Like I feel like the offense tries to do too much, and you see guys like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Like I'm sorry, he is not good this season. Like I know he's above average, but like to me it's a little bit ridiculous the lack of production that we're seeing from him. Then not to call somebody out. I mean I know I just did, but you like I feel like when I watch this team, they're trying to do too much, and I, I don't know. I think the moment might get to them in the playoffs. I mean, we saw what it did to them last year. I'm not even going to bring that up anymore, but like they have the pitching and the defense to win a championship, but it feels as if they're like, oh, we lost Marcus Semien, we lost Teoscar Hernandez in consecutive seasons. Now we have to be the guy. Everybody's kind of saying that, and I think that's where I'm a little bit disagreeing or in a bit of a disagreement, just because like if you're, I mean, we all were at the Jose Bautista game. I don't think that any of this current lineup has the ability to be like that, where they're clutch in the moment, they rise to the occasion. I'd love to be proven wrong, but it just feels as if whenever I watch any of these players offensively, it's like it's just a head scratcher type of at bat. And like sometimes it works. Obviously, Varsho hit that home run. It was the first game of the series, but like you look at it and it's so frustrating when they have a golden opportunity to score and they don't. And hell, like they even won. What game was it? A couple of games ago where they won off of a hit by pitch with the bases loaded. Like
Yeah,
and
Tuesday's game.
and like I went to a game, I think it was the Orioles, where they got hit twice in a row with the bases loaded.
Shintaro Fujinami, Blue
Which
Jays
is
legend.
yeah. But like you can't be winning. You can't rely on that type of stuff to win. Like you need to be better offensively.
Yeah, like obviously you need both going to some extent, but I think when you get to the postseason, pitching matters more than hitting does. And again, the saying like good pitching beats good hitting 100% of the time. It doesn't matter if you allow one run, but you score zero, of course. Like there's obviously caveats to that, and depending on who the Blue Jays run into, they could have near equal pitching staff, and then all of a sudden you're in a bind. But I don't know. For all the frustrations that this season has caused us, I try to hang my hat on that. The last question about the pitching staff, at least for now, that I have for you is, you talk about where you slide Yusei Kikuchi into this and where you put him in this conversation of the Blue Jays 1 through 5. Let's have that debate. If you're ordering the Blue Jays rotation 1 to 5, where do you put Yusei Kikuchi? I guess I can go first. I think I don't know. I think it's maybe a coin flip isn't the right word, but it's close between Jose Barrios and Kevin Gausman right now. I think Kevin Gausman probably has the leg up even after, he kind of blew up in this series and gave up 7 runs on Wednesday. I think he has the leg up. So I go with him as number 1. Jose Barrios is number 2. And then you get another coin flip, I think, with Chris Bassett and you say Kikuchi. Kikuchi's got a better ERA. Bassett has pitched a little bit deeper into games. But that being said, you talk about the walks being down this season for Yusei Kikuchi. Kikuchi's walks are at a career low and lower than Chris Bassett's are this season. So I think all things being equal, I choose Yusei Kikuchi as the number 3 starter in this rotation. Bassett 4, then of course like Ryu, Manoa, that whole mess at number 5. But I mean, just to think like where we were before this season, and now we're putting, first off, Jose Barrios as a number 2 starter, but also Yusei Kikuchi as a number 3 starter. It's kind of a miracle if you ask me.
Well, see, I was talking to Bryson the Jose Bautista game because Bassett was starting that game, and I made a joke to him. I'm like, okay, Bassett's starting. We're either going to get 9 innings of no runs or 3 innings of 6 runs. I feel like, Chris Bassett, like, yes, he has the ability to pitch deep into games. Obviously, he has that crazy arsenal of pitches, but might be a bold take, but he is not starting in a 3 or 5 game series. Like, yeah, you can still use him, I guess, in the bullpen if you need him to. I'm not saying that they would, but like, it's tough because you can't afford to lose games in the playoffs. And I think Chris Bassett is more of a coin flip than people realize. That being said, though, like, I think Kevin Gausman still is your number one. Uh, I know the offense doesn't really perform well for him, but he's still like, if you're looking at a team or a pitcher that you can bet on, you bet on Kevin Gausman, even if the offense doesn't show up. Like, they're not going to, I mean, they lost. You didn't necessarily pitch the greatest in the last game, but they're not really going to lose because of him. As for the rest of it, I feel like if I'm thinking of a wild card series, I would put Yusei Kikuchi second. The only reason why is because if you get to
Really?
here's so this isn't like my Ross Stripling take where I'm like, oh, Ross Stripling game
Yeah.
one
I mean,
starter.
talk
But
about terrible takes.
no, that was not bad. But here's the thing. I'd be confident with either uh Kikuchi or Barrios in game three, but I'd be a little bit more confident in Jose Barrios. Either like at that point it is a coin flip, but I would still like to see Barrios. Like, if you have to get to a game three, I'd rather Jose Barrios. And then, I mean, Ryu, here's what's tough. I don't think we're seeing Alek Manoah for the rest of the season. Yeah, like, I highly, highly doubt it. But so you think of it, you got Manoah, or excuse me, you got Gosman, Kikuchi, Barrios, Bassett, and Ryu. I feel like Ryu is number 5 just because of the fact that he's just barely back from Tommy John surgery, but I'd still be confident putting him putting him in like a game 4 or something like that.
Yeah, I hard disagree on going with Yusei Kikuchi over Jose Barrios in a postseason series. I mean, they have pretty similar ERAs. Kikuchi is at 3.44, Barrios is at 3.53. To me, the difference is the fact that Jose Barrios pitches deeper in games, right? He's averaging, if you take it over the full season, he's averaging almost 6 innings per game, and Kikuchi is down at 5.1 innings per game, meaning
That
5 innings, 1 out, not. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, that being said, like the first I'm trying to get quickly scroll down. Like, you look at the way his season began, like we had a couple long outings, but like for the first, yeah, like he had a stretch of like 9 of 10 games where he was pitching uh 5 innings or less, something like that. So like
This is
at the
Barrios,
no, Kikuchi.
Kikuchi.
So like I feel like his average innings per game is a little misleading just because he had that really short leash at the start of the season.
But I think in the postseason, you're going to have a really short leash, anyways. And to me, like,
Mm.
if you get Barrios, let's just take the season average. If you get Barrios out there for 6 innings, all of a sudden you can pass it onto the bullpen. Like what we saw in game 1 of this series, you can go Garcia, Hicks to Romano, and it's game over after the 6th inning. To me, with Kikuchi, like if you have to stretch that into the 5th inning, all of a sudden, like you're talking about bringing in other guys. So like maybe Swanson and Ramado are you two favorite in the 8 or 9. So then, you kind of have to go to, I don't know, Mesa or Trevor Richards or like some of these other guys who maybe aren't quite as strong and maybe a good lineup can get to them in the postseason. So I think that's we're grasping at straws here to find differences between these guys, but I just think the Blue Jays kind of trust Jose Barrios more where he is this season. I mean, especially considering his track record as well. Like he has a longer history of being dominant compared to Yusei Kikuchi. So that's why I would pick Jose Barrios to go in a 3-game wildcard series to go number 2. And then you go with Yusei Kikuchi in game 3. And yeah, I think Chris Bassett either, like depending the way the schedule shakes up, he either pitches like game 1 of the division series or he goes later in the division series, or, we may end up in a situation like we did last year with the championship series where you need to have a 5th starter in the championship series. We were in that situation last year. Of course, the Jays never got there, but like you can't rule Ryu out. And I think either way he makes the postseason roster as a long man or in the rotation.
Almost like
Okay.
remember
Yeah.
Liriano in 2016
Yeah.
where they just kind of
Yeah.
threw him out every couple, they could do that too.
Exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing him. I'd like to see him try that a few times in the regular season before you do it in the postseason. But yeah. Okay. One of the heroes from this series, a very unexpected hero, was Kevin Biggio. You mentioned him earlier. He got hit in the back foot on a slider from Sir Anthony Dominguez. He drives a run in with that, kind of just like clenched fist determination to stay in the box. Whether he could have gotten out of the way of that pitch, who knows? But he scores a winning run for the Jays. And then in Wednesday's game, he goes 2 for 4, 2 RBI. You mentioned Varsho. Varsho also had a good game. He had a 2-run homer as well as a walk. But Biggio, kind of the surprise guy. And he's sparking this giant conversation over who the Blue Jays send down when Bo Bichette is back. And Bo Bichette will be back very soon, potentially by tomorrow night. He's playing right now in AAA with the Buffalo Bisons. He had a home run. He was starting at shortstop yesterday. On Wednesday, he went 2 for 3 with a run scored. He started at DH. He is on the verge of returning. This is a conversation we're going to be having. It's a separate question of who is going to go down and who should go down. Who is going to go down? I think that's our dear friend Davis Schneider. He's been around for a very short amount of time. He had an amazing opening weekend, but all good things must come to an end, and it seems like he's kind of lost his mojo a bit. I mentioned previously I loved the walks that he was taking, his patience at the plate, and the way he was working at bats, and he's continued that to an extent, but I just don't think we've seen the offense we need to see out of him. I don't think the Blue Jays have gotten what they want to get out of him, at least for the time being, right? Like, this is a guy who's still in his first, 20 major league games? Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. To me, this is a guy that's going down. Who should go down? That's Santiago Espinal. And I have a feeling you're going to say the same thing. Santiago Espinal didn't have a great series. He hasn't been great offensively all season. He hasn't been great defensively all season. He had a defensive miscue in this series. And so, I don't know. I just have a hard time convincing myself that anyone else should go down. Like, I guess, like, Paul DeJong is in the conversation of should. Certainly, he will never go down this season, just because of, obviously the Blue Jays trade for this guy. He's an important guy to this team, and he's under team control, assuming they pick up his option. And so, he's not going down. I think Espinal should go down, but I think it will be Schneider.
Yeah, it hurts my soul to say this.
You could still say Biggio, by the way. Like, you could still say he deserves to get sent down.
No. I mean, it hurts my soul to say this, but Espinal is probably the one that deserves to go down. It's he's
Mr. All-Star Espinal.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, to be fair, like, the emergence of Whit Merrifield really cut his playing time down, and then he went from being like you think of 2021 when they didn't have Matt Chapman, he was playing pretty much every day. Last season, his playing time was cut short, or short a little bit. And then obviously this season, Merrifield, you're not taking him out of the lineup. Varshall's defense is too good. You still find a way to keep him in. Even Brendan Belt too. Like, it's just, I feel like, it's an unfortunate situation, but at the same time, I don't blame him for the I don't want to call it a downfall, but the lack of or the decrease in performance. But he is not one of your best guys right now, I guess, is the best way to put it. And it will probably be Davis Schneider. I do think that should be Espinal. I hate to say this, but I kind of had a feeling this would happen with Davis Schneider. Like, he was gonna, regress a little bit. Obviously, you're not gonna hit a lifetime average of like 687, whatever it was after the first couple games. But he's had since the 6th of August, so since that that Red Sox series, he's had one hit in, I can't do quick math, but in like 25 something at bats. So it is like it's unfortunate, but I think it's fair to say that, like, you get called up when a star player goes down with an injury, unless you keep up this performance, or at least you're consistently getting hits. You kind of had to know that this was a thing where he's going to get sent down. Like, I feel bad for him, but at the same time, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, or it's not the end of the of his tenure with this team. Like, he will probably be up, maybe again this season, maybe next season, something like that. But I do think it will probably be Davis Schneider. I don't think that they want to get rid of Espinal, even though he's, I hate to say it, but he isn't the best option that they have right now. I will definitely eat my words with this whole Kevin Biggio thing, because I mean, it's obviously documented for, I don't even know how many, like, the past 3-4 years, I have ripped this guy to shreds, and he's performing a lot better. I mean, he was in he was 4th or 5th in the offense or in the order last night, the last game against the Phillies. Like, he's working himself into much more of an important role this season. And I mean, then, that makes it even more complicated because it's like, well, where does Merrifield play if Biggio is going to play well? And then they obviously have two catchers. They could DH one. It's like, well, now obviously there's one catcher that's not going to be playing guaranteed. Is Varsho's defense more important than Biggio's offense? There's just a lot of different things that they can do. I mean, Kevin Kiermaier's out right now, but when he does come back, that'll just make it more complicated. But yeah, you love to see this. I mean, obviously Espinal or not Espinal, Biggio's kind of part of that three with Bichette and Guerrero. The other two have definitely established themselves as star players, despite what I said about Vladdy earlier in the episode. But Biggio was like that one that never uh amassed to the same level of or the same prominence with them, which it not yeah, like it's not a great thing, but like you look at what he's doing in this little stretch, and it's important. Like you know that you now at least can rely on him for now, get you some wins, and August is, I mean, it's not over yet, but August is going to start wrapping up soon, and then September hits, playoffs hit. If something like this, a player like this can help you win games, I think you put him in the lineup whenever you can.
I'm not going to go that far. I think Biggio is perfect the way he is. Like, he should be a bench guy, a replacement guy. I don't think he should be getting a crazy amount of playing time. But yeah, the point stands that he's been actually pretty solid this season. And he's been doing it pretty quietly. But of course, now that he's had a couple of bigger moments, we're starting to pay attention to him again. And we talked about David Schneider. He was the surprise hero in Boston. And then after that series, I think it was Cleveland they went to, and Kevin Biggio became the surprise hero at the start of that series. So he's had his moments and he's been performing. I mean, over the season, he has 97 OPS plus, so a little bit below league average. And again, that's why I say, like, don't have him in there every day. He shouldn't be getting regular playing time. But in the role he's in now, he's doing really good. And just compared to Santiago Espinal, kind of a similar role, perhaps I would, playing even more, right? Espinal is 173 at bats. Okay. Never mind. It's pretty simple. Espinal is 173. Biggio is 185. But Espinal is a 67 OPS plus this season. So that just kind of gives you a sense of where these two are compared to each other. And so, yeah, I think, like, if you were actually having this debate, Biggio would win out, of course. I mean, it's looking like Schneider's going to be on his way down, unfortunately. But yeah, like, he'll get another shot in the majors. Rosters expand to 28 in basically 2 weeks. So the Blue Jays are going to have an extra 2 roster spots to fiddle around with, whether they use that on someone like Manoah if they want to bring him back, whether they use that on someone like Schneider or different. I mean, like, Chad Green's going to be in the conversation there. So a lot of different ways they can use those 2 spots, but one of those ways might be bringing back Schneider to the major league roster. If they do indeed decide to send him down, because that's still up in the air, but I guess we'll find out in probably less than 24 hours, which brings us to our next point, Bo Bichette. We mentioned a little bit. He's on his way back. The Blue Jays need him back. They haven't been terrible since he's been gone. They're 8-7 in the time since he hit the injured list, but they need him. I mean, he is an offensive spark plug to end all offensive spark plugs. Like, they need this guy at the top of their lineup, setting the table, getting things done. Not to say the Blue Jays have been bad. They've actually been pretty good with runners in scoring position compared to the rest of the season over the last 2 weeks or so. But just adding Bo Bichette to that mix is going to make them all that much better, especially when you have a lot of these guys who are hot right now, right? Whit Merrifield, Brandon Belt, George Springer. Vladdy's not hot, but he had a good game on Wednesday. He had a couple walks, so maybe you can take that as a silver lining. So if you're getting some of these pieces, adding Bo Bichette is only going to improve this offense even more. The other thing to talk about injury-wise was the return of Jordan Romano. He made his way back in this series. And for the first time, we saw the potential 1-2 punch or 1-3 punch or 1-4 punch or whoever you want to line up the bullpen that may be Jordan Romano and Jordan Hicks. This was in Tuesday's game when the Blue Jays win by 1 run. We have Kikuchi going 6, and then Jimmy Garcia, Jordan Hicks, and Jordan Romano. Hicks and Romano combined for 2 innings, 2 perfect innings, along with 5 strikeouts. 5 of the 6 outs they recorded were by the strikeout. This is really exciting. I mean, like, we've been clamoring for another hard-throwing guy out of the bullpen for forever, and for a time, it was Nate Pearson. He stopped being effective Now it is Jordan Hicks, right? He can hit 101, 102 with ease. And getting him in there as someone to set up Jordan Romano or someone to come in and put out fires or wherever you want to use him, it's really, really fun. And to see that those guys go 1-2 and finish them off in a one-run game, that was incredible. And so I'm really excited to see what they have in store. And I mean, we talk about what this team might do in the postseason, and I think Jordan Hicks is a big part of that equation, that flame throwing guy out of the bullpen. I don't think the Blue Jays make it as far in the playoffs. Trying to predict here, I don't think they make it as far in the playoffs without Jordan Hicks, and hopefully they make it far in the playoffs. So that was a really exciting moment to have those two guys back.
Well, and also Trevor Richards, he'll be back soon
Yeah,
from what I'm hearing. So like you look at this
and
bullpen.
Chad Green.
Mhm. Yeah, too. So I mean, unfortunately, Adam Simber's kind of been an X factor. I know that's kind of a random name to throw out here, but like he was the league leader in appearances last season, and he's barely made any appearances this season. Obviously injuries have gotten to him, but you look at this bullpen, and it's like it's good. Like it's legitimately, objectively good. It's not like, oh, it's good for a Blue Jay bullpen. It's good for this time of year. No, like it is. Like you have obviously Romano missed some time, but you had somebody who was uh among the league leaders in saves who can easily throw 100. You have another guy that can throw 100. I mean, hopefully Nate Pearson is back soon. Another guy that can throw 100. Uh, what's his name? Tim Meza, who barely gives up any runs ever. Uh, the names just keep going. Trevor Richards, his changeup's been dominant all season long. Eric Swanson's been dominant all season long. Like you put that bullpen in a playoff series, I think it beats any lineup. I really do. Like, yeah, it'll give up some runs here and there, but I am extremely confident that that lineup or that bullpen would just dominate any team. And another thing we have to remember, like, you're not going to use all 5 year starters. I mean, it gets complicated, but your rotation obviously gets broken up in the playoffs. You can then throw in a guy like Ryu or Bassett or like anybody. Like you just look at the quality and the quantity of arms that this team has. Like, how can you not feel confident going into a series? Like, yeah, your offense needs to perform a little bit better, but if they get a lead late into a playoff game, which remind you they had last season, that slipped away. But you look at these arms, and it feels as if this bullpen is it's one of the best that they've ever had. And obviously, I'm not been around to witness, all 40, whatever it's been, years of Blue Jays existence, but this is one of the best pitching staffs I think that they've ever had, at least since I've started watching. So you got to feel good. I mean, I don't think that they're going to win the World Series this year, but you have to feel confident going into the playoffs that this bullpen and even the starting rotation will take you deep.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, they've got the fourth best bullpen ERA in baseball. The Yankees, actually, surprisingly, are number one. Who would have thought with the train wreck of a season that they're having? But yeah, I mean, this is fantastic bullpen. It's only going to get better with Chad Green and Trevor Richards. And I mean, like, yeah, you mentioned Adam Simber. I don't know what's going on with him, but maybe he
Yeah,
factors into this down the line. Like,
no, I was just gonna say,
but
like, he gets injured and then they keep transferring him to like the 60, the 50, 30, like all these different ILs. I'm like, geez,
yeah,
when are you coming back?
yeah, I don't know if he'll be back at some point. I don't know what the latest update on him is, but like, yeah, maybe you factor him in. Like, if you've got the roster space, maybe you bring Nate Pearson back. Like, there are a lot of different names you can throw into this bullpen to just make it even better. And so, like, again, going back to my original point, like, this is why I think this is a team that's built for the offense or built for the postseason. Like, I really believe that this team, regardless of regular season woes, is kind of built for the postseason. And so, I mean, like, knock on wood, assuming they get there, it's going to be an exciting time to see this bullpen roll out there every day. And just to kind of close things off on that regard, let's give a little standings update as things stand now, which are certainly going to change by the end of tonight and certainly going into tomorrow. The Blue Jays are 7.5 back of Baltimore for the AL East lead. The Rays are only 2 games back, so they're still in the conversation there. The wild card, much more up for grabs. The Blue Jays are holding steady at the third spot in the wild card race. Tampa Bay is in the first at 5.5 games up. Houston is second at 3 games up. So the Blue Jays could be fighting with Houston, could be fighting with Seattle, who is fourth right now, 1 game out of the playoff spot, 1 game behind the Jays, and then Boston 3 games back. So it's a tight race. There's room to move with those kind of 4 teams there. It's every game matters at this point. Every game is more important than the last. And so I don't know. It's exciting to watch every day. This series against Philly certainly had a playoff feel. I think this series against Cincinnati coming up will also have a playoff feel. And the reason for that is because Cincinnati is not a bad team. They started this season really well. And so they're kind of carrying over the success from that. But they're at 63-59. They're only 2.5 games back of the NL Central lead. And as of right now, they are in a virtual tie for the 3rd wildcard spot in the National League. So they are right there. They are fighting for every game, just as the Blue Jays are. And so I think this series is going to be a really fun one, not least of which I'm excited to see Elly De La Cruz in the lineup. And hopefully he doesn't do too much damage against the Blue Jays, but I can't wait to see him play ball. So getting to series predictions, Friday it's going to be Jose Barrios against what looks to be Brett Kennedy for the Cincinnati Reds. Saturday it's going to be Chris Bassett against Brandon Williamson. And Sunday it's going to be Hyun-Jin Ryu against Hunter Green, former Jacob fantasy baseball pick.
We're not going to talk about that whole debacle.
Do you say the Reds win that game? What are you saying? What's your series prediction?
Well, before we say that, I just want to say one thing quickly. I think it was John Schneider sometime earlier this week said it's too early to scoreboard watch. That's a hard disagree. Like you look at how tightly packed this is. Blue Jays have a half game lead in the wild card. Like this is, I would say it's like you have to scoreboard watch at this point. Like you look at the amount of games left that you have, the amount of teams fighting for really your spot in the playoffs right now. Like even with the Rays falling off, like it's going to be a fun last like 6-7 weeks of the season. But anyways, in terms of this series, like you said, yeah, another like not playoff preview, but like playoff style series. I'd say the Blue Jays take 2 of 3, lose the Chris Bassett game. Hunter Green's coming back from the injured list too. Like let's not forget, like this is his first start back. So I mean, I feel like that's more of a coin flip than people realize, but yeah, I would say they take 2 of 3, lose that Chris Bassett start, and then hopefully the Mariners don't win any games because you look at like they won today. Blue Jays need to keep that gap as far as they can.
Yeah, it's getting narrow. All these games matter. I don't know. I have faith in Jose Barrios. I think I have more faith in Chris Bassett than I do in Hyun-Jin Ryu. So I'm going to go 2-1 like you, but I say they win Friday, they win Saturday. And unfortunately, they lose on Sunday with Hunter Green on the mound. We don't have a prediction from Bryson. We'll get one before the series start. Put it in the spreadsheet. As things stand now, Bryson is still in the lead, 56 points. I'm still in second, 53 points. And Jacob, unfortunately, you are still trailing at 38 points. Not looking good for you back there. But on that positive note, positive for me, maybe not for you, we will wrap up there. As always, thank you for listening. You can support our podcast and find everything to do with our podcast at the links below this episode. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have everything else. We have Spotify, we have Apple Podcast, anywhere you want to find our podcast. And you can support our podcast at Buy Us a Coffee, and you can join our Discord, which the link is also below this episode. 3 games against Cincinnati Reds and Elly De La Cruz. Looking forward to it. We'll catch you next time.